The opinions expressed on Topic A do not necessarily reflect those of the staff, management, or sponsors of Town Square Media.
This is Bob Levy's Topic A with Jeremy Grunin, a Jersey Shore tradition for over 35 years.
On Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
And Ocean County's hometown station, 92.7 WOBM.
Now, here's Jeremy Grunin.
Hey, welcome back. Topic A, I'm Jeremy Grunin here on 92.7 WOBM FM, My Beach Radio, 1160 and 1310 AM. We, of course, are on WOBM.com, MyBeachRadio.com. Both stations have apps, and, of course, we are also on Radio Pup. We're going to hold off on phone calls for a little while because we have a special guest in the studio. We have Bob Hugan. He is running for U.S. Senate against Mr. Senator Robert Menendez, which should be a spirited battle. And so I'd like to welcome, first of all, good morning, Bob. Thank you for joining us.
Jeremy, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You know, and I'm always impressed by someone who before you actually start running for Senate, you already have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
I mean, that means you've really made it. So
I've had a great life, I have to tell you that.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. You know, you have a very impressive resume. You know, you've done a ton of things professionally. You started with a really, really impressive academic career. You served in the Marines, right? You've done it all. I imagine life isn't bad for you in general. What makes you decide you want to run for U.S. Senate?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, you know, I have lived the American dream, and you know, I grew up in Union City in Hudson County, and was the first in my family to go to college, and I have had a great life, great experiences, built an incredible set of skills I think I really want to put to work here. I really think we're at a tipping point here, and it's a major inflection point where I think very concerned about a number of issues. One is we're going to go about and re-electing a senator who has so violated the public trust and has done so little for the people of the state of New Jersey. I just said, I have to step in here. I can't let this happen. And so you're right. I have a great life. I've been so fortunate to do so many different things in my life. I want to talk a little bit about that. But I just had to step in here and not let this happen.
Right. So for those of you that have been living under a rock, our U.S. Senator Bob Menendez has been, had been investigated for ties to a Florida doctor with some issues relative to, I don't know, maybe he helped this doctor get some, women, expedite the women maybe getting here a little quicker than they would have on a regular visa. Maybe there were some trade issues. Could have been some shady dealings. But ultimately, I guess we had a hung jury, and then they were going to retry it, and they dropped the whole thing. Very hard to prove some of these corruption charges. But I would go out on a limb and say most people who have followed it with any degree of regularity would say there were clearly some improprieties here, right? I mean,
Jeremy, this goes beyond the fact that, Dr. Melgen was convicted of 67 felonies and sentenced to 17 years in jail. I guess Senator Menendez is a self-proclaimed best friend, a Florida constituent, taking trips to Dominican Republic and France and all these places. But this is a track record of this kind of behavior. If you look at, for the last 30 years, the people around him who have been convicted or charged or investigated, this isn't an isolated incident. This is a track record of the kind of behavior that has embarrassed the state of New Jersey. It's not surprising that we're 50 out of 50 from what we put to Washington when we get what we get back, because how can people in Washington respect New Jersey when this is who is our senior senator? So this is a career of behavior that is embarrassing and immoral and unethical and certainly illegal, not proven, a hung jury. But we can do a lot better. The people of New Jersey deserve a lot better.
Sure. So we can continue to go down the negative road, and that's, I'm certainly sure that'll be that'll certainly be a flavor of the campaign on both sides, I would imagine. But let's take the high road for a little while.
Yeah.
So talk to me. First of all, I want to thank you for your service, because you were 8 years a U.S. in the U.S. Marines active duty.
I was in active duty for 7 years,
okay,
and did 7 years in the reserves after that, and we have a great family. Let me tell you a little bit about it, because I do think it's great to be here in Toms River.
Okay.
My mother actually grew up in Pleasant Plains, right on Route 9.
Cool.
And she was the valedictorian of the class of 1937 in Toms River High School.
Wow.
and lives in Manchester, Leisure Village West, right here in your listening area. Her birthday is in less than 3 weeks. She'll be 98 years old.
Wow.
And her power in terms of shaping my life is pretty influential, in that here she is, graduates Toms River High School, 1937. Farm girls don't go to college. And it's something that shaped my life. And my father was a great guy, World War II vet, died in 1990. But anyway, she had such an influence, such a smart person, and she had a great life, still has a great life, but didn't have the full impact she could have had. And it really, the fairness of that is always struck me, that how could this talented person not have the same opportunity as everybody else? And so, and she also shaped my life. We lived in Union City and sort of didn't really know that we didn't have a lot. But I always still remember the fact that Friday nights were special to us because it was one night we had dessert. And so that was like, something special. And my mother, we lived right next door to an apartment building, a tenement building, and there was a woman there that didn't really have a lot of family, couldn't get out. My mother did a shopping, made sure the apartment was clean, helped neighbors down the street, always helped other people around her. So when I was so fortunate to get a full scholarship to Princeton, the first person in history of my high school to go to Princeton, and it opened the world to me. But even then, I knew that I felt from my family background, upbringing, that you owe back, and when you're blessed with something, you owe service. And that's when I joined the Marine Corps, and it wasn't a popular thing to do. I was the only person in my class to join the Marine Corps. They offered me 2.5 years, and I spent 7 years because I learned the importance of selfless leadership, the idea of helping others. That's how you become successful. And also learn the importance of a strong national defense. And today, Jeremy, both my sons are in the Marine Corps, both graduated college and serve in the Marine Corps as infantry officers. And it's important public service.
So wait a second. So you're telling me you graduate from Princeton, right? You get a full ride to Princeton, right? Which is incredible in its own right, being in New Jersey and get a full ride. And obviously you didn't have connections that got you in, right? So you get a full ride to Princeton. You graduate Princeton, and where I'm pretty sure, graduating in 1976, you would have had some fairly strong job opportunities at that point, and instead you choose to go into the Marines?
Yeah. It was not dissimilar time to now, that the society was polarized. It was still, the end of the Vietnam War, lots of adversarial feelings about the military, and I felt the people that served their country in Vietnam, I'm a Vietnam-era veteran, did not serve in Vietnam, but it felt so bad for these men and women that served our country so proudly, and so many of them lost friends and family members injured, et cetera, not respected. And I just felt I was so blessed to have this opportunity opening the world to me, that I owed service to respect the family service, other people's service. And so, my life is so much better off because I did give that service.
Right. It's just an incredible decision at that. When having grown up with the modest means that you did, right? And then I'm sure having an opportunity at what was, I liken it to if you were going to college playing basketball, and you had an opportunity to get drafted and go sign an NBA contract, and you were like, no, I'm going to go serve my country instead, right? No. Not that you're tall enough to play basketball, but I'm saying you had an opportunity there.
No, I had a great opportunity.
That's a pretty amazing choice
but
in and of itself.
I also knew I had a long-term future, and I was going to do what's right. But Jeremy, I've taken a lot of risks in my life. I joined a company called Celgene 19 years ago when the company had 6 weeks of cash left, and was ranked the first 3 years I was there as one of the top 10 companies in the United States to go bankrupt. And it is today one of the world's leaders in the fight against cancer, and has turned some cancers into a chronic disease and on the verge of curing those diseases. So when you talked early on in your show about some of the issues in this campaign are going to be about biotech companies, pharmaceutical companies, I am so proud of what I've done in my life personally. I'm so proud of what I've done in my life professionally. There's nothing that I'm going to back away from and not be proud of, and saying I'm going to run towards the things I did and support the things I did. Because if we don't invest in the future of people's health, if we don't care about the advances that we need to make, because we have such economic issues in our society, if we don't deal with Alzheimer's, cancer, metabolic disease, we will have no discretionary spending in our society if we don't solve these issues now. We need to invest in now. I'm proud of what I've done in the anti-cancer fight and the issues I've led in the whole industry to advance the kind of advances we're making. And I'll tell you, when I go to Washington, Healthcare reform is going to be one of the great things I'm going to do. I was on the board of Atlantic Health, which is a healthcare system in northern New Jersey, for 11 years. I understand what it takes to reform Medicaid and Medicare without losing benefits, but improving care for seniors and veterans is going to be another big part of my campaign. Very positive issues. We need to do more. And Senator Menendez, I'm sorry to say, 25 years in Washington, 16 years with a Democratic president, has failed us. There are people in the state he's never been to parts of our state, have never helped with their issues. We need to change that now. It's time for a change.
Okay. So you do, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but you do acknowledge that the visceral, I guess the Pavlovian response to when someone hears the term big pharma, right, is one that kind of makes them cringe.
Oh, without doubt. I think you have to live in a dream world if you don't realize what's going on, how people perceive it. And we're going to deal with it. First of all, it was really a biotech and a biopharma company.
Right.
Celgene's not a huge, big pharma company. It was a small company, again, with 6 weeks of cash when I joined. So this isn't some established big player. It's become a much more significant player. And it's tough. When you think structurally, Americans pay about 3% of their hospital costs, 5% of their doctor's costs. They pay 24% of their drug costs. And co-pays and plan design have increased expenditures on drugs 50% over the last 3 years, while drug expenditures in 2016 went up 1.3%. All of that is hard to explain to people. The reality of it is we have to make the case what we've done helped patients dramatically,
sure,
and we're going to help people in the future. But they're going to mischaracterize things, and we're going to fight through it. We're going to make sure people understand there's a lot more. We got to talk about the future, the things you talked about. New Jersey is at a tipping point. It's crazy tax levels. It's unacceptable to think we're going to raise taxes further than that, and we're going to fight that every day. And we got to get this state turned around in terms of creating jobs. The issue that we have is so serious. You think about seniors that are leaving the state, people with higher incomes. That's the capital we need to create the jobs of the future. But what is most distressing when you think about the issues that this state has done and even in the last few months made much worse, the outmigration of 18 to 34-year-olds. Those are the people that are going to take the capital from the more senior people and bring the new technologies, apply the new economy into jobs, create jobs and new applications. We're losing those people at a faster rate than any other sector.
Well, listen, not only we know that not only do we basically in New Jersey get back 61 cents on every dollar that we send to Washington, which is the worst in the union, but we also understand that our outmigration, we are the number one outmigrator of college kids. Right, they leave the state at a faster rate than any other state, and we know that we lose that 18 to 34 demographic. And look, aside from the fact that we are ranked number 50 relative to how we are for business to thrive within a state, we are consistently ranked bottom of the food chain. So there's certainly a lot of work to do. So, Bob, we have to take a break. When we get back, I want to kind of dig into some of the policy issues and see where you stand. Because, look, at the end of the day, we could talk about, Menendez's record. We could talk about pharma. We could talk about all those things. I think the average voter wants to know, what are you going to do to help my quality of life here in the great state of New Jersey? Bob Hugin, U.S. Senate Republican candidate, back after this.
This is Topic A on Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
And Ocean County's hometown station, 92.7 WOBM.
Hey, welcome back. Bob Levy's Topic A. I'm Jeremy Grunin. We are here with Bob Hugin. He is Republican candidate for U.S. Senate up against Bob Menendez. Let me ask you a question. There is a primary, right?
There is on both sides.
Yeah, but that's not going to be an issue for you, right?
I've been endorsed by all 21 county organizations.
That's a good percentage.
And so we don't take anything lightly, but we're focused on November. November 6th is the date. Gotcha.
All right. So let's dive in a little bit to with some of the issues, right? So we talked about we talked a little bit about taxation. Right. So, how do you feel? What do you feel about the new tax plan? What we just incorporated, which was very controversial here in New Jersey. Where are you on that?
Yeah. No, I think there are many positive provisions of the tax reform, and we needed tax reform both on the individual side and the corporate side. Let me just quickly talk the corporate side first. I think the corporate side finally puts American business competitive with the rest of the world so we can create more jobs in the U.S., that manufacturing jobs don't have to be outsourced. That's a big deal because we now, I think, with President Trump focusing on fair trade, we can have fair and free trade. We want free and fair trade, but we have taxes now that don't force businesses to push their employees and manufacturing overseas. So very good for job creation. On the individual side, I think, some of our senators and congressmen let us down. And Senator Menendez, one of them, in the sense that this $10,000 cap on state and local taxes is a disadvantage to New Jersey. And when you're already 50 out of 50 and you're taking away one of the subsidies, he should have fought to raise that cap to 15,000, so even fewer New Jerseyans, even though a great percentage of New Jerseyans are getting a tax reduction, the few middle-class people that are should have been better protected by Senator Menendez. And if they're going to take this subsidy away from New Jersey, give us something else. Put more operations into the joint base here in New Jersey so we can get some of the federal dollars that we're losing by having some of the provisions of the tax bill. So overall, some positive things, not as good for New Jersey. We need to fight. When I go to Washington, I'm going to fight to raise that cap, if not eliminate that cap, because it's unfair to New Jerseyans.
Right. Well, it is unfair to New Jersey, and so just in the spirit of fairness, Menendez did not support that tax plan.
Right, but he had nothing to. He could have said, okay, if you're going to take this away from us, what are you going to give back to us? And he could have argued to get it to 15,000.
Right. And your point is, being that that we have a I would imagine, being that we have a Republican White House, right, that you would be in a much better position as a Republican U.S. Senator to have those discussions and to negotiate on behalf of the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, well, Jeremy, I think any organization, people are better off when they're represented by a broader constituency of people. So you have people from both parties representing you in Washington, you're going to be better off generally. But I have to tell you, going there, I'm going to be there as an independent voice. I'm going to represent all New Jerseyans, and I'm going to care. Anybody who has something good for New Jersey, I'm going to fight to support that. Anyone, I don't care, Republican, Democrat, who does things that are bad for New Jersey, I'm going to fight against them and stand up.
All right, so how about this? How about the fact that we have a governor now who has been very outspoken about the fact that he's okay with New Jersey being a sanctuary state? Yeah. Right? And so how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues that the sanctuary state brings up. First of all is that people want to change laws, change them. But when you're elected to office or you're a law enforcement officer, your job is to enforce the law, not to decide what laws are appropriate and which ones are not. So this idea of sanctuary cities is just illegal. It's not in the context of their job. They're supposed to enforce the laws. If you believe a law is wrong, get it changed. But until that happens, enforce the law. And that leads us to the discussion of the borders, right? You're not a country if you don't secure your borders. So you have to secure the borders. There are issues about, you were talking earlier about the National Guard going down. We have to be careful that we do things constitutionally, that we recognize what the role of the military is, what's appropriate. That being said, whatever resources needed to secure the borders is what we should support. You're not a country if you don't have secure borders.
Sure. And so, and listen, and we joke about the National Guard, although we know that Barack Obama sent the National Guard down, and as did other presidents. So this is not unprecedented. And certainly we also know that our president currently is very much about leverage. And so certainly when you're taking 4,000 folks from the National Guard and putting them on our southern border, it gives him a lot more leverage to get that $20 billion. He's looking for $20 billion plus to really fortify our southern border with a really big shiny wall.
Well, when you think about it, Jeremy, the original Gang of Eight that talked about this whole immigration border security compromise, they proposed $50 billion for border security. The latest negotiations were only $25 billion. So let's be clear. I don't think it's been unreasonable negotiations. I think providing a path to citizenship that's appropriate, along with consistent with legal immigrants, the Dreamers getting a path to citizenship is appropriate, but the border security should be included in that. We should get people, my whole career is about results and getting things done, working with whoever you have to work with. Just not happening. We need people in Washington to go down there and get things done.
Right. Well, and clearly, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think anybody would say that the DACA folks, that we shouldn't figure out a solution for them. We know that that's a very popular issue among Americans in general, that we want to figure that out. But not without addressing chain migration, not without addressing the visa lottery system, not without addressing the fact that we don't do background checks appropriately.
Right.
There's a lot of work that has to be done there. Okay, so while we're on that, so in the news now, and certainly in the stock market, we've talked a lot about China. We've talked a lot about tariffs.
Yeah.
Right, so this is I'm not sure how this doesn't end in some form of a trade war. Yeah. How do you feel about what's going on here?
I'm more optimistic than you, although I think trade war is bad for everyone. It doesn't help anybody outside the U.S. or certainly not in the U.S. And tariffs, in the end, don't help the U.S. consumer, and they hurt job creation and U.S. jobs. So, on the other hand, if you don't stand up for yourself, you're not going to get a fair deal. So I'm optimistic that the president is using these tariffs as a negotiating leverage. The same thing he's done with Gateway in northern New Jersey to argue, let people stand up and give him something in exchange for getting something back for it. So we have lived with unfair trade for a long time. I fought against TPP way before it became a political issue in Trans-Pacific Partnership because it was unfair to American businesses. So free trade is critical for our consumers, for the growth of our economy, U.S. jobs, but it's got to be fair. And I'm optimistic that this president is a Mr. Negotiator, and he's going to use these tariffs as negotiation. But in the end, we're going to get a better deal in NAFTA. We're going to get a better deal with South Korea. And listen, the Chinese have gotten away with stealing intellectual property, doing things for a long time here that are finally being called to task. So if we can get any type of more fairness there, it's good for the American consumer and it's good for American jobs.
Right, there you go. You heard it. Bob Hugan, he's not down with TPP. All right. Last thing, let's talk about, this one. This seems to me, I got to say, before President Trump took office, to me, I thought the easiest layup here would have been infrastructure, right? Because there's nobody that could, to me, it's hard to argue that we aren't years and years and years behind in updating, our electrical grid, updating our roads, updating our bridges. I mean, we have so many issues from an infrastructure standpoint. And as a fiscal conservative, certainly we want to talk about the fact, to me, that spending money is always an issue. But the flip side of that is the employment and the money that gets flowed back into the economy. So where are you on infrastructure?
Well, I've had the great pleasure in these last month or so to travel around all 21 counties in New Jersey. Infrastructure is an issue in all 21 counties. And there are parts of this state that infrastructure is crumbling very badly. And we talk about, being a third world infrastructure. In some places, it's worse than third world infrastructure. We need to address this issue. These are capital issues that can improve the economy, improve the long-term viability of jobs and opportunities. So I think we've got to make a stand here. I do think you raised the issue of the kind of fiscal discipline. We've lost it. It's hard for anybody on any side of the aisle to say that they're a fiscal conservative when you think about the budget, the omnibus bill that was just passed. It's outrageous. So we've got to make sure we differ between spending and investment, and infrastructure investment that helps us grow the economy long term. We got to make those investments. And I think we just had a 23-cent increase in the gas tax here in New Jersey. So, and in exchange for that, we're supposed to have a slightly reduced sales tax, which I guess that's now going to be reversed, which is the most regressive tax, and it hurts the middle class and people more than anybody else. And so we need to get a handle on taxes and spending, but infrastructure has to be an important part of it. And the president's a good negotiator. Schumer wants this badly. We need it badly. So what are you going to give up in exchange? So we got to fight stronger to make sure it happens.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, Bob Hugan, he is our running for U.S. Senate here in New Jersey. Anything you wanted to kind of wrap up with?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, Jeremy. I want to give your listeners some better hope than what you did early on. We're going to win this race. I'm going to tell you something. New Jersey voters put up with a lot. They put up with a lot for a long time, but they're not stupid. They understand when they're being pushed too far, and the moral issues here and the actions and the behavior that have been done here are unconscionable. And it's bad for New Jersey. People realize that, and they've been underserved. New Jersey has not been well represented. We're going to make that case, and we're going to win on November 6th. You'll see.
Listen, I hope to God you're right. I've said many times I am a card-carrying Republican, although I have many callers who would argue that and say I'm kind of a rhino. But there's nothing that you've said today that I don't agree with fundamentally. I do think we are in a very, very tricky state, and I think it's a very tricky time to be a Republican, right? Because we have a president who is he's an enigma wrapped in a riddle for many folks, and it's difficult to know where to stand with him on certain issues. And so I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And we'd love to have you back on as we get closer to lever pulling time. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And after I'm elected, I'll come back also to make sure be accountable to the people.
That's even better. Bob Hugan, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me, Jeremy.
Back with more Topic A right after this.
There's still time to let your voice be heard.
When Bob Levy's Topic A with Jeremy Grunin continues.
On Beach Radio 1160 and 1310.
And Ocean County's hometown station, 92.7 WOBM.